Joining me now is Joe Allen. He's an expert on transhumanism, technocracy, and so many other very important topics. Do you have his book? You have his book? Are you following him on X? Here he is on X right here. His book is Dark Eon, and here he is on X. Be sure to follow him, all right, on X. At Joe, B-O-T-X-Y-Z. At Joe, B-O-T-XYZ. He joins us now. Joe, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Brandon, very good to be here. It's been too long.
It has been. Looking forward to having you back. I just figured out you live in my home state of Tennessee. I don't know how I missed out on this, but we're fellow Tennesseans.
Been here for a while.
I did not know that. That's my fault. We're going to get you over to the studio, I think, hopefully soon. We've been talking about that off the air. Do some long format interviews. All right, let's talk about technocracy, transhumanism, the big AI thing that came out last week, the AI plan. We've been doing a lot of shows on that. What did you see in there that caused concern, if anything, from the Trump White House?
Basically, it's an open door. There is some safeguards that are being proposed, but by and large, if you've gone over it with the audience, I don't want to necessarily bore them with the nuts and bolts details, at least no more than is necessary. But it opens with this call for acceleration and innovation. The whole idea really is that the U.S. has to remain at the forefront of AI design and deployment, and the race towards artificial general and then superintelligence, although it's not mentioned in the plan, is really the goal of these frontier companies, Google, XAI, Anthropic, OpenAI, so on and so forth. So what this plan is doing really is just laying out a lot of policy proposal that would enable the creation of more and more powerful AI design. And also, of course, there's some talk of the safety at the end, but in general, it's not something that will happen upstream of development and deployment. For the most part, it's setting up the U.S. to look downstream what is happening or what has happened, and then begin to regulate around that. So, if you want my opinion on it, I think that this is a very, very poor choice, and I think that the more we try to restrain what we already suspect will be the worst outcomes of artificial intelligence, from the surveillance aspect to the tech dependency to the possibility of more and more decision making being done by algorithmic systems rather than human beings. All of those things could be curtailed with wise regulation, I believe, but that's going to be up to the states. If there is any one good thing that I can highlight, and there's actually a few, but I think that even if the language of the 10-year AI moratorium on states being able to regulate, that language is still present. I think it's on page 3. You see the above that language, the declaration that the federal government should not restrict states passing prudent laws, and as long as they're not unduly restrictive. And in a way, that's a concession. And then you see below, though, the Office of Management and Budget and the FCC invoked as possible mechanisms to punish states by withholding funding that pass any kind of laws that get in the way of the national AI agenda.
So right now, though, it isn't law that states are prohibited for 10 years to do anything. States can still act right now.
No, and a lot of people rallied together, to kill that. And it shows that with enough will, you really can, steer policy more in your direction than it was before. But the imperative to do so is obviously still there. Guys like David Sachs, guys like Mark Andreessen, maybe guys like Peter Thiel, he hasn't really spoken about it, but the people on the kind of accelerationist end of all of this are still wanting to ensure that certain states don't get in the way of any of their plans for rolling out extremely powerful AI systems. They oftentimes, you hear it a lot of times, well, you can't have California regulating the entire country. And I can imagine scenarios in which California would pass extremely crazy laws that would force AI companies to make all of their AI models, for instance, conform to certain politically correct speech codes. But if you look at the 18 laws that are on the books right now in California, they're around data transparency. Where did you get your data? They're around watermarking generated content, meaning that you can't just have a model that creates deep fakes. They're about regulating deepfakes and criminalizing deepfakes. They're about not being able to create any kind of child pornography or anything like that with an AI system, not using AI systems to deceive other people. These are not unreasonable laws. So I think that for the most part, all the talk about California ruining the AI industry, if the laws that they've passed so far are any indication, basically California is just one of the few states to actually try to keep this reined in. Texas is another one.
You're quoted in an MSNBC article talking about an interview that you were doing, I think, on Steve Bannon's show.
Yeah.
It says the next day, Allen embodied the right-wing critique of Trump's AI plan when he said, quote, excuse me, my hope is that the Trump administration does not close off the borders of the United States only to open the gates of hell within and unleash horrible AI systems upon the populace, end quote. Give me your worst case scenario. What is your biggest concerns right now watching Palantir? I guess they want to create a file on every American. They're deep inside. Peter Thiel, all these guys, J.D. Vance's guys, I think, helped bring him to where he's at today. All these guys are deep inside now, the Trump administration. What is your worst fears about what we could look back and say that President Trump maybe was misled about and led down the primrose path here? And we're going, oh, I wish President Trump had not let these guys in the door. What's the worst case scenario of what they could accomplish?
Well, I guess the worst case scenario would be one of the true doomer tropes, right? The AI becomes superhuman, either sentient or not sentient, but certainly malevolent, and then either kills everybody by shutting or sending nuclear weapons, or creating nanobots to kill us all, turning everything into gray goo. That would be the worst case scenario. Although, on the other hand, there'd be a lot less to worry about then. Wouldn't really have to keep the anxiety so high. I think the most immediate concerns, though, and I don't mean to disparage the doomer narrative. I do think that it's important to pay attention to their reasoning on this, how it would be that you would create a system that was superhuman that could do horrific damage, whether it's conscious or not, just simply a system that was able to outsmart its creators. Some narrow systems have been able to do that on very small scale and narrow tasks. But now I'm not really worried about Terminator scenarios so much. I think as long as I'm invoking film, what I oftentimes try to instill in people's minds, the real fear should be somewhere between the Matrix and Idiocracy, meaning that people will live inside illusory digital bubbles, not unlike we do right now, but that are almost entirely AI generated or AI mediated. And that will in turn create a much dumber populace. And I know many of your listeners would probably say, well, how could you possibly do that? It could get worse, believe me. And the end result would basically be a very compliant, easily controlled population of people who are kind of suckling on the mechanical teat and waiting for the end to come. That would be the worst. So, and it doesn't have to be that cartoonish. You just need some approximation of that. The other big issue, you brought up Palantir. Palantir, has been around for 22 years, and I'm very, very glad that more attention is being paid to what they do. But they're one of dozens of companies that do exactly that. And so the whole thing about Thiel taking over the White House, Thiel's been with Trump for a decade plus. So that's nothing new. I can understand people's shock if they've only just learned this, but Thiel has been right there with Trump from the beginning of his political career. And Palantir has been there for 22 years. And it's good that people understand what they're doing and the kind of motivations and agendas that go behind that. Their primary role is data processing and gathering, and for the purpose of getting a clearer picture of what surveillance information is showing. So on the, I guess you would say, if you wanted to look at like the positive side of that, if you look at what Palantir does in terms of monitoring global economic and political and military activity to show basically like where a clear sea lane would be, or to give some indication of an incoming attack for an army at war. They've donated their, I don't know if it's still donation, maybe they're being paid now, but their technology is being used in Ukraine, it's being used in Israel. And they also, their technology is used for target acquisition. So you're sifting through massive amounts of data, whether it be online communication, surveillance, satellite surveillance, all of that. And you're looking for valid targets for war. If you're for war, I guess maybe you should be for Palantir because they're going to help people do it better. For me, on the other hand, I think that by and large, these wars are not just wars. And I also think that the real concern in regard to surveillance and in regard to looking for valid targets in combat, the big concern would be that your government turns that around and uses it on you. These sorts of algorithms are used regularly by the FBI. I don't know about Palantir specifically. Again, there are so many different companies, so many different algorithms of these sort. But you have police departments, state bureaus of investigation, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, CIA, all that, DHS, all of them using these sorts of things on the American populace now. And it can either be used unjustly in the sense that you use this to identify valid dissent and suppress it, or the algorithm glitches out and you end up in a situation kind of like the movie Brazil, where you've been flagged falsely for terrorist or even just criminal activities, and then the hammer comes down on you anyway. So I think that, again, just to go right back through, robots kill everybody, big problem if it were to happen, not top of my priority list. Dumbing people down and making them tech dependent and using algorithms to delude them, massive problem, already is a massive problem, will only get worse. The more we do to get rid of that threat, the better off we'll be. And then, of course, surveillance. And AI does, or algorithms in general, but AI, if you want to call it that, AI does enable a lot more surveillance data to be usable than just the standard techniques that have been used for the past few decades.
Well, Palantir, I read different articles. Some say one thing, some say another. How involved was Palantir, do you think, in helping find Osama bin Laden? Because I watched a documentary not too long ago, I think it was on Netflix, Hunting bin Laden, and they had a lot of people that were apparently on that bin Laden team. They were being interviewed using their face. They weren't scrambled or anything, talking about how many hours they spent trying to find bin Laden. And I guess they found a courier, somebody's nickname was used by bin Laden, I think his son on a video. And his son, I think, was appearing off camera. Young child. And by picking up that guy's nickname, they kind of figured out that he was a courier, and they started listening for his voice. And it was like picking a needle out of a haystack until finally one day they were able to somehow identify his voice on the phone, and then they tracked him. Now, I've read articles that Palantir was involved in some of this tracking of Osama bin Laden. What have you read? What do you think is true? And doesn't it show us that Palantir's been involved with the intelligence arena for some time? Is that true? And the intelligence arena generally have great tools, but they need real brilliant, bright people. Most of those people, I think, stay in the business world to make money. So now you're combining the intelligence world with the best and the brightest people who maybe were involved in even helping the intelligence community find bin Laden, if that's the case. That tells you, again, where you could be going with a massive global surveillance state that would just blow your mind how quick they could find you. I asked one of my friends once who worked for the National Reconnaissance Office, putting up satellites and grabbing data to give to the 17, 18 different intelligence arenas. If I were in the woods and say the Boundary Waters, and I was talking, could you guys hear me? And his response was, I can neither confirm nor deny. So I don't know. I don't know if they could actually say, well, we don't know where he's at. We know a general area. Zoom our satellites in and start listening. Is he talking? So he doesn't have a cell phone. He doesn't have anything tracking him. But if he talks, and we know he's in this 10-mile radius, we're scanning this 10, 20, 30-mile radius. And as soon as we hear his voice, we'll know it's him. I don't know what they've got, but I think we would be blown away by some of the technology they have. What do you know about Palantir? Were they involved? How long have they been involved with our intelligence community? Were they involved in hunting down bin Laden or not?
I don't know specifically about bin Laden. You just told me more about that relationship than I'd ever heard before. So I don't know. I do find it, I'm not going to go out on a conspiratorial limb on this, but I do find it very odd that they disposed of the body immediately and that the SEAL team that was involved were largely killed afterwards. But I don't, anyway, I'll leave it there.
And you would be referring to Extortion 17, of which my friend Billy Vaughn's son, Aaron, was on board, SEAL Team 6.
Yeah, and I'm just simply remarking that these are strange coincidences and saying nothing more. But Palantir, as an apparatus used by the intelligence agency and in many ways created by intelligence agencies, yes, from the inception, just after 9/11, 2003. And yes, I mean, their whole purpose, the whole foundation of Palantir is about beefing up the ability to use surveillance data and find a signal in all of that noise that's used for border patrol. It's used for crime. All these things that in general, I think people want to see succeed, right? You want the border, at least on our side of the aisle, you want the border to be closed off and protected. You want criminals to be brought to justice. If you're at war, you want to win them. You want to know what your enemies are doing. You want to know how to find the valid targets and the most valuable targets. All of those things. Again, the problem, there's a few different problems there. One, who is steering that machine? Even if you feel like the person who's steering that machine or the people who are steering that machine are on your side or they are good guys, that can change very, very quickly. Palantir, for instance, was involved in the rollout of the vaccine. Again, data gathering, data analysis. I'm pretty sure they were trying to identify areas and demographics that were and were not taking the vaccine and keeping track of what vaccines have been rolled out. I could be a little off on those details, but certainly had deep involvement. And I think that many people woke up. I think there was a massive shift in consciousness, both for the worst and for the better, from 2020 going forward, because you can see how quickly an apparatus that is in many ways being directed by or is directing the military-industrial complex, because that is deeply involved in the creation of the vaccine, in the pandemic response, in the surveillance methods used, all these sorts of things, in the coercion, all these sorts of things. So you can see how quickly that whole system can shift rapidly, can take half or more of the population with them, meaning that you have half or more of the population that are going to go along and justify what's happening. And it's turned squarely, it just aimed right at you. This is a massive problem. And so the creation of any system like that is going to be potentially you are creating your own destruction. You're basically feeding into your own ruin because it could be turned on you. The second thing, though, is should you really have that much power? And I don't mean just Palantir. I mean, basically, these technological systems, if they function properly, should you have that much power at all? Should humanity be wielding the power to change the weather? Should humanity be wielding the power to change the human genome or any genomes of any organism on the planet? Should humanity be wielding the power to wipe an entire city off the map, as happened at the end of World War II and could easily happen again today? I think in general, even if it's inevitable that such powers accumulate, the wisest move would be to use it only if absolutely necessary. That certainly doesn't seem to be the plan going forward. And the third is, what if it doesn't work right? And that happens all the time. You saw it during the whole 2020 Great Germ Panic scenario, all sparked basically by a flawed model created by Neil Ferguson in The London University. It's been so long now, Brandon. How you help me out here? What is Imperial College London?
There you go.
And there was a flawed model which showed mass death, like 2 million deaths within 6 months in America,
Yes.
and 500,000 deaths in UK. And that model was presented to Boris Johnson and then to the Trump administration. And that model is what really, it was the catalyst in the UK and a catalyst in the US for mass panic. And it was completely flawed. And that guy gets caught breaking the lockdown to see his mistress in some sort of bizarre academic polycule. So it just shows that, one, you don't want it turned against you. Two, you probably don't want a system that powerful built anyway, even if that's, that horse is already out of the barn. But three, I think that people really underestimate how bad it would be if, for instance, you put the education of children largely in the hands of algorithms, or if you insist that medical doctors defer to algorithmic systems or utilize robotic algorithmic systems over and above their own abilities, so on and so forth. Well, what happens if the machine is flawed? What happens if those flaws are not exposed before tremendous damage is done? So I know that's a departure from Palantir, but Palantir has been involved in all of this from the beginning, and I don't see them going away.
What about central bank digital currencies? President Trump has signed an executive order against those, but as I'm studying this and talking to some other folks, I have to wonder, what if the tech bros, they got better technology. The feds probably are way behind or not getting it, as good as it should be. And I would think if they had it, they would have launched it. So the tech bros will come along and make it what it should be for a
Bitcoin.
Stable coin. Yeah, exactly. Bitcoin. They've already done it. Stable coin, Bitcoin, whatever you want to call it. And to get around the whole idea of a central bank digital currency, it won't be the central bank. It'll be the tech bros, just like the Federal Reserve is a collection of banks given a federal charter. They're not the federal government. You do the same thing. You give the tech bros a federal charter, and they develop this, and it's handed off to some third agency, be it the Federal Reserve or newly created one, to handle it. Thereby, it's not really a central bank digital currency. It's not a, something run by them. It's created by the tech bros, run by them, managed as the front guys by somebody else. Is that what we're seeing here? Is that why people say, when they say, I don't have to worry about a central bank digital currency, because that President Trump signed an executive order stopping it. Is there going to be an end run around here where people are like, whoa, wait a minute, I didn't think they were going to do that?
I think that's already happening. Yeah, I mean, the digitization of currency has been with us now for decades. So it's now the norm. Most people don't use cash. And that's just the reality of it. Most people use traceable digital transactions. So all the fears of central bank digital currency are quite valid, because it would lock in a system, especially when you get into ideas like programmable digital currency or monitored digital currency on some sort of ledger, so that every transaction is not only monitored but can be limited in real time. And these sorts of things are already with us too, right? You have bank policies that, for instance, will flag large withdrawals or large transactions. So they bleed into each other. What we've already made normal with digital currency is, I think, you can see it more clearly in the concept of a central bank digital currency that would be on some sort of blockchain, that would be just kind of endlessly traceable and highly controllable. But we're already there. I think that a big focus should be on rolling that back as much as possible.
So the executive order doesn't help you sleep at night?
None of these, nothing happening in the White House for the most part helps me sleep at night. Nothing happening in Washington, D.C. gives me a lot of comfort. So no, but one of the technologies that is going to be enormous, I think, in the future is Bitcoin, and not just like all the different Ethereum and other stable coins, or the so-called I can't say it on air, but the phony coins, we'll call them. The meme coins, the ego boosting coins, all that. That's happening, right? But Bitcoin will be probably the important one going forward.
Is the CIA behind that Bitcoin?
I don't know if the CIA is behind it, but they certainly use it. I've heard all of those accusations. People say the CIA does all sorts of things without a whole lot of evidence, and people say the CIA couldn't possibly be involved without a whole lot of evidence. I don't know, but I do know that Bitcoin, by its very nature, is not going to be controlled by the CIA. They may have a massive stake in it. They might use it a lot, which they do for a lot of black budget activities and black operations. But the whole notion that Bitcoin is just this thing that was created by the CIA, I think is a fundamental misunderstanding of how the technology works. And I only have a limited grasp of how the decentralized blockchain-based currency works. I'm not some sort of expert on it, but I do know that the consensus of the majority of the users is a major force in how Bitcoin goes forward. And I don't think that that's something that the CIA has agents all over and is steering. One way or the other, I think Bitcoin is something that I don't know that it's going to replace all currency or anything like that, but I do think that Bitcoin, because of its versatility, you can literally send messages by way of Bitcoin, right? You can publish material on Bitcoin, and that material is by and large unalterable. So that my book, for instance, is published on Bitcoin through Canonic XYZ. And what that means is, if no matter how many digital copies are out there that could potentially in some future world with ultra powerful AI could be altered, could be, Orwelled, that's very, very difficult with a decentralized ledger. Not impossible, but very, very difficult. And so it gives a sort of security, a sort of permanence, something like etching into stone that normal digital communications may not be reliable for in the future. So beyond just its currency element, Bitcoin is, I think, going to be important as just simply a kind of medium. And we'll see how that goes. It could be something very, very different. But
we are going to see
that I'm seeing.
We are going to see some kind of central bank digital currency, regardless of what they call it.
Maybe, maybe not. Again, the central bank digital currency thing, it's a great one that I'm so glad that people have exposed the various plans to do so. And I think in some cases in Europe, actually happening. But again, the real problem that we already face right now is the ubiquity of digital transaction. And even if the central bank digital currency had begun rolling out a year ago or 2 years ago, it's not that it would just replace all currency. It would just be another form of currency, right? You would still have digital dollars floating around everywhere. You would still have cash. You would still have coins. You would still have gold. You have all the other things, but you would have, in addition to that, a central bank digital currency. Not to say it couldn't become ubiquitous, just to say that that wouldn't be the first thing that would happen. And the problem, again, is already with us. It's the digitization of our transactions, not just because they're traceable, and so it opens you up to scrutiny and also a kind of analysis of your habits, so on and so forth, your movements, all of these sorts of things. But also it can just be shut down just like that. So we've already got that. Central bank digital currencies simply are another step in that direction. So the executive order against them, great, fine, that's good. I'm glad that happened. But there's a lot of other things going on, I guess is what I'm saying, that I think are probably going to be more important in the future, Bitcoin being one of them.
Okay, a couple more questions for you. We got XAI here in Memphis. Elon's deal. He's supposedly running a bunch of methane generators. My power's flickered off and on multiple times since he came to town. I don't know if that's because of him. Local city council member told me last year he was told that's why they were trying to bring that thing up online. I don't know. But now we have Google announcing a $10 billion data center right over the river from Memphis in Arkansas. How concerned are you for our nation's power grid and power consumption and power rates? Is the average person going to be able to afford their power bill? Is this going to be passed on to the consumers? Or we have the governor of Florida talking about doing away with property taxes. Are these data centers going to be taxed so much that counties can do away with property taxes? Is this going to be a blessing or a curse for the average person living where these data centers are?
For the average person, I imagine this is not going to, there's going to be very, very few upsides. For the people building them, for the people who own them, for the people who utilize them for data processing and the creation of AI, obviously it's going to have tremendous benefits, but I think at the expense of other people. Already there are reports around the country of spiked electric bills, right? Electric bills as much as doubling, and most likely due to the strain on the system because of the data centers. You have the pollution element you just spoke about with the methane generators. That is an enormous problem for anyone who lives downwind of that, and also downstream of these things. So yeah, the pollution is going to be enormous. Maybe they'll get better techniques so that the amount of pollution isn't necessary. The strain on water. I mean, you need a ton of water, fresh water, to cool the servers as they're doing the AI training. And so that is another element. The electricity and water, two of the vital resources for a modern life, right? And the data centers are sucking up, like for instance, in Ireland, I think that it is as much as 20, maybe more than 20% of the electricity on the tiny little island of Ireland is used to power data centers and servers. And there are states, I think it's Oregon, it's some 20% of the water, something like that, is used to cool data centers. So, you know, I don't have a clear granulated picture of this across the country, but taking those extremes and imagining a future 5-10 years ahead, it's going to be an enormous crisis. If you look back at the AI action plan, you know, there's 3 pillars. The second pillar is dedicated solely to building out AI infrastructure.
That's right.
That means everything from building out, you know, granting federal lands to build out data centers. It means allocating resources such as electricity and water and capital to create and run these systems. And then also the, you know, manufacturing of microchips and reshoring microchips. All of these sorts of things. Yes, if you're looking towards a future, as I'm fond of saying, if you assume that the future is one of, you know, tech titans summoning digital demons, and that's what's going to run the world of the future, then yes, these are all great things because it's going to put us ahead in this race to summon the biggest demon. On the other hand, if you have other values in mind, if you have other interests, then what you see is this really grotesque misallocation of resources.
So are we headed? So are we headed for a tech bubble, like a .com bubble? Are we headed for an AI bubble?
I think that's definitely going to happen. But
what does that look like? What's that look like?
But I don't, you know, it's anyone's guess. I mean, I was actually really stunned, for instance, at the legal case against Anthropic. I mean, it's possible that they'll go out of business, right? This is one of the 4 leading AI labs, and they may go out of business.
This is over there loading up
violation.
New York Times articles and stuff, loading them up.
Yeah, and you know, basically, and they paid for them, and that's why. I mean, all these other companies did the same thing, but Anthropic paid for them and made it more public what they did. And so, and David Sachs is not a fan of them, and nor are the accelerationists near Trump. So, you know, a confluence of different factors mean that they are in serious trouble, you know, depending on the ruling. So this is all to say that it's very hard to anticipate who's going to be the next one to the best model and who's just going to get knocked out of the game. But I think that without a doubt, I mean, if you look at the amount of profit that's generated from AI up to this point, they're at losses, right? You don't have a profitable business yet. It's all staked. All of this investment is staked on the future usage, right? The future profits. And so if that doesn't come in, at some point, people are going to pull out. And yeah, you're going to see the bubble. You're going to see implosion at the very least. But I think it would be a misunderstanding of the situation that we're facing to imagine that all of this is just hype, and that a lot of it is for sure. But to imagine all of this is just hype, that this is just a bubble, and that bubble once it bursts goes away. Look at what happened with the .com bubble, right? All of that investment went forward to lay fiber optic cable everywhere and processing hubs everywhere. That bubble is what built the internet that the economy is now staked on. So a lot of those early companies like AOL and Yahoo went kaput, or at least shrank to, little gnome-like midget versions of their earlier selves. But the internet still happened. It changed the world. It changed everything about the way we do business, the way we communicate, the way we come to understand the world. And so the idea that AI, again, is just hype, or this is just a bubble, it's just going to go away, I think is quite absurd. It may not be the most extravagant, outlandish, futuristic vision, but it is absolutely going to have major impacts. And as I've argued basically from the beginning, I think that many or most of those impacts will be negative. And I think people need to at least prepare for a great transformation, if not for a great abomination of desolation.
Well, okay, you didn't know what I was going to ask you as my closing question, but you just set it up. That's pretty remarkable. Abomination of desolation. Because that's where I was going. How much of this is setting up, do you think, what the Bible talks about is the mark of the beast system, number one? And why is it that Peter Thiel seems to want to warn about Antichrist and Armageddon so much? We've played clips. I have one here real quick where he's talking about this. Why does he seem to want to warn about this? Watch this, please.
And
yep, that's right.
And then I think, again, to come back to the Soloviev-Benson plot hole, on its own, they both seem not that desirable. Why would we have a crazy surveillance state? Why would we, why would we do this? But if you're scared enough of these things, that's the weapon. And this is sort of where my speculative thesis is that if the Antichrist were to come to power, it would be by talking about Armageddon all the time. And
Peter Thiel.
Wow. Well, let me finish that one here.
The Antichrist would talk about Armageddon all the time. He'd scare people and then offer to save them.
Yes, it's the 1 Thessalonians 5:3. The slogan of the Antichrist is peace and safety. And so, which is...
Okay, he's not even using the passage in context. But anyway, why is this guy always talking Antichrist? He's not the only one. Antichrist, Armageddon. Why does he do this?
Maybe he's spinning yarns. Maybe he really believes it. The first time I ever heard him use that, I guess you would call it a metaphor, was the Oxford Student Union. And he delivered an address, and he went into some of the details of why he believes this. It was largely in response to a transhumanist scholar at Oxford named Nick Bostrom. He wrote the very impactful book, Superintelligence. Nick Bostrom was so freaked out by the idea of someone creating a superintelligence that would come alive and kill everybody, and other devastating technological developments, that he believed that a kind of one world, or at least an American and European system of security would be required, just total surveillance of everyone all the time. It's where a lot of the talk of smart dust and things like that, he was talking about these sorts of things, and people around him talking about these sorts of things. I think they were called Patriot amulets or Patriot necklaces or something like that, Patriot talismans. Basically, anyone of any importance would have to wear this surveillance device everywhere. And of course, now Sam Altman and even Jeff Bezos are marketing these sorts of things, or trying to, as a consumer product. And your smartwatch does exactly that. And your smartphone does exactly that. But anyway, the whole point of what Peter Thiel's talking about here is that the fear of technological devastation, if repeated endlessly, would justify a centralized and perhaps one world system of surveillance and control. And so Armageddon in Revelation, occurring after the appearance of the Antichrist, Thiel's reasoning is that you need to first worry about the Antichrist before you worry about Armageddon. And by Antichrist, basically, he is kind of a Catholic. He certainly invokes those symbols a lot in what he talks about. But just taken as a metaphor, or just a sort of allegory, this Antichrist figure would be a system that sought to, for instance, to control the development of AI so that it didn't get to powerful or so that it didn't go out of control that would require mass surveillance to detect any kind of threat. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about a tension between safety and security and innovation and possible total destruction. Is he just spinning yarns? Is he sincere? I don't know. I mean, I don't know the guy, but I do think that it's at least an analogy worth considering. But it's a real problem. What do you do? That's one of the big things, this AI action plan, the spirit of it. I don't know how much Thiel himself had, how much of a hand he had in crafting it. Probably some, but certainly the people who did craft it are in that sort of accelerationist sphere. And the way they're looking at it is that the controls and the safety regulations are the real problem, right? The nanny state is the real threat. And the real promise lies in development. And I get it. I get that perspective. On the other hand, you look at just even 5 to 10 years down the road, if current trends continue, add to that actual increases in capabilities and sophistication in these systems, I myself, and I think we agree on this, Brannon, I just don't see those upsides. I certainly don't see those upsides outweighing the downsides. There's no amount of video generation that could, it doesn't matter if they create the greatest film on earth purely by, invoking their AI demons. If you then also have the capability to create a deep fake of any single person and wreak havoc on their life, let alone on tens of thousands or millions of people, it's simply not worth it. Use a camera, hire actors, draw pictures. This is simply not worth it. And you go down the line, and with many, I would argue most of the use cases for these technologies simply don't justify the downsides, which are either very likely or maybe even inevitable.
I agree. Very, very well said. Take a look, folks. Here he is. Follow him on X at Joe, BOTXYZ. Here is his book, Dark Aeon, Transhumanism and the War Against Humanity. I highly recommend it. And then here is his, I don't know if this is like it's his podcast is what it is.
It was my attempt at a podcast that I will eventually resurrect.
All right. Well, there are some archives there.
But
I guess
there's 10 great episodes if you want to listen.
Well, there you go.
I'm trying.
There you go.
I'm trying.
Well, there you go. It's a lot of work. I do 4 hours a day. A lot of work. I know.
If I could, Brandon, I'm doing. There's a faith summit, an AI and faith summit that's coming up. I'll be speaking. It's online. You can sign up. It'll be right at the top of my social media. It's AI plus faith summit, and on Friday I'll be discussing the three big questions: is AI the will of God? Is AI the work of the devil? Or is it merely the effort of man?
Wow. Who all's involved in that?
I don't really have a clear sense of the lineup, but it's certainly, I think many of your listeners will love a lot of it. I think they're much more on the pro AI angle. So if you want to hear somebody a little less doomy than me or you, you'll probably get them.
And what's it called? AI and what?
AI plus faith summit.
I'm looking it up.
I'll probably be the doomiest of all.
Well, here we go. Yeah, the church must lead in the age of AI. That is really interesting.
And I think they may have. I'm not 100% sure that's them. I think that might actually be another one. I'm not 100% sure. It's unclear. Follow the link on my social media.
Here's another one: AI and Faith Summit coming up in August.
That's it. That's the one.
That is interesting. So are they warning about it, or are they saying, no, this is something we got to get excited about?
I think they want to get on board. So it took me a while to explain. They kept asking me, like, what's the positive side? I'm like, you'll have plenty of people to talk about that, but you're not going to get a whole lot of that out of me.
Wow. Oh, wow. You're going to have leaders from the Episcopal Church. Remember, wasn't it the Episcopal pastor, the female pastor that went after Trump? The Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, I think they've gone leftist some time ago. The Presbyterian Church USA, I think that used to be conservative. I don't know if they are anymore.
This group, there are a lot of Republicans that help organize it. So I'm guessing, again, I wish I had more information. All I can really tell you is what my role is there. But this organization is, I think, by and large, conservative Christians, but they're also techno-optimists. Maybe not after Friday.
Well, this is very interesting. I'm going to definitely be looking into this because I think it's interesting that they're holding such an event. Huh. Well, I'll be following that. Let me know more about that. And we look forward to getting you in studio and doing some long format interviews. And we could even open up the phone lines for people to call in and ask questions.
It'll be fantastic.
We'll
and you could reach out and shake me if I keep going on too long. Like, hey, calm down.
Hey, it works for us. You know what? I love a guest that cranks out the information. It makes for a better program than having to draw it out of them. So you're a very good guest. And that's one reason I want to bring you in studio and go long format. Look forward to it. Hey, thanks for making time for us.
Right on, brother, man. Yeah, absolutely. And I look forward to it. I'll be down in Memphis ASAP.
Let us know. Let's get it on the calendar. Let's text. Thank you, Joe.
All right, thanks a lot.
My fellow Tennessean there, folks. I just found out yesterday he's living in Tennessee now. There you go. I don't know why you guys aren't living in Tennessee. It's a great state. I love Tennessee. All right, Diego, follow him on X. It's at Joe, BOTXYZ. We'll be right back after this break. Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. Did you know that we have more than one channel? Not just Worldview Tube, our 24/7 stream and on demand, but did you know we have a home and health channel, a Bible prophecy channel, a Bible teaching channel, and a history channel? Yep. All you got to do is go to worldviewtube.com. Take a look at this, worldviewtube.com. Go to TV and hover your cursor over TV or click it, and then you'll see our Bible channel, 24-hour-a-day Bible teaching, our Bible prophecy channel, our history channel, and our home and health channel. They're all free of charge, folks. Brought to you as a ministry and part of our foundation, worldviewfoundation.com. So all you got to do is go to worldviewtube.com/prophecy for the prophecy channel, worldviewtube.com/Bible for the Bible channel, worldviewtube.com/health for the health channel. That's all you got to do. History, Bible prophecy. Folks, we got a lot, and you're helping us push it out. worldviewfoundation.com.
Nature has a rhythm, a quiet strength, a way of restoring, protecting, and renewing us. Wellness isn't just about how you feel today. It's the quiet choices you make for tomorrow. At myvitamin.com/worldview, we've made daily self-care simple. Quality vitamins, daily supplements, and targeted nutrition. myvitamin.com/worldview makes it easy. Pure ingredients thoughtfully combined, tailored for your body. Formulated by a doctor who has over 25 years of medical practice experience and is a certified functional medicine provider. Visit myvitamin.com/worldview today and take the next step towards strength, balance, and resilience. Discover the wide range of med packs made for you and your loved ones. What you nurture today becomes the strength you walk in tomorrow.